What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings Podcast studio. Today, I am very excited to be joined by Corey of Ernest Goes to Comics, new crowdfunding Kickstarter. Are you on Kickstarter, Corey? Is that where it's going to be?
We're going to be exclusively on Kickstarter. That's correct. And
awesome.
That will be from September 17th through October 17th. So we got to build the word and try to get some people out there to help us bring Ernest back for another adventure.
Awesome. Now you're writing the project. Did you, are you the one who came up with this idea, this crazy idea to bring the epic Ernest to the comic book world?
I mean, that I know of. I'm sure other people have thought about it, but yeah, I talked to the owner of the franchise, Josh Cherry, and we just sat down a couple of years ago and we were talking about bringing Ernest to a graphic novel. And so long story short, I decided to write the script, and we worked on it we worked on the script for like a year and a half, maybe. Like we worked on it like a long time. When it was finished, I would send it off to friends or send it off to, consultants, or send it off to people who I thought were funny. Anyone who could give me feedback. Because Ernest is so like specific and unique, you can't really approach that without a team of writers or something like. So I'm spearheading the project. Yes, I'm the writer. Yes, but I got, as the Beatles would say, I got a little help from my friends, and here we are.
That's awesome, man. So right about the time that Justin reached out to me, he asked me such a silly question. He goes, "Are you a fan of Ernest movies?" And I'm like, Justin, we probably wouldn't be friends if we weren't both fans of Ernest. I don't know if you can trust somebody that's not a fan of Ernest movies. So I'm assuming you had a love of Ernest in your heart as well when you came up with this idea.
Of course. Yeah. Don't trust somebody who's so jaded that they can't like Ernest. Come on, man.
I'm telling you.
I'm a huge Ernest fan, and it's a big honor for me to be able to be at the helm of bringing Ernest back. And one thing about this process that I've learned is like, there's a lot of people like yourself, like me, that are super passionate about this franchise. It's funny because there's some people who like, they probably would be happy if they never heard from Ernest again. But there are people who really love Ernest, and we're among them. And so, yeah, I was Ernest fan from childhood. My first friend when I was 5 years old showed me Ernest Goes to Camp. I'm wearing the Camp Kiki shirt right now, by the way.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is. And that just started, and then Ernest Scared Stupid became my favorite Ernest film. It's
hard to choose, isn't it? Like, I was trying to think. I'm like, Ernest Goes to Camp, and the one you just mentioned, the Scared Stupid, like, I'm like, I can't really pick a favorite. Like, they were such a big part of my childhood and everything. Like, I mean, that had to be difficult for you to kind of come up with the idea for a story when you have all this great content that has already been created on the film and everything.
That's true. That's a great point, because they've covered so many genres, and that made it difficult to try to come up with something unique. I would say that when you read this graphic novel, if we're honored that somebody out there will read it, it is my love letter to, let's say, Ernest Scared Stupid. Ernest Scared Stupid is my favorite one, but it also has some shades of Ernest Goes to Camp. And what do I mean by that? Well, Ernest Scared Stupid is like zany. Ernest is almost like a Looney Tune, but he, I feel like it's like Jim Varney's peak performance, in my opinion. But Ernest Goes to Camp is kind of like a dramedy. It actually has some pathos in it, and there's an iconic scene where Ernest sings "Gee, I'm Glad It's Raining," and Jim Varney's performance is incredible, and it makes you feel a lot of sadness. I'm like, wow, I want to tap into that. So this is like a spooky story with some touching character arc moments, I would say. So it's mostly Scared Stupid, a little bit Goes to Camp.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I learned something in this in that the fact that Jim was actually into comics and stuff growing up. So that was really cool to hear that he was a comic book fan and everything. So I would have to think that he would think it was pretty cool that he was going to be becoming part of the comic book world. Have you had a chance to chat with any of his family or anything regarding the project?
Yeah, so Justin Lloyd is his nephew, and also the author of his biography. And he's really excited about this project, and he's been really helpful. He's helped us market. He's helped me with ideas. He's helped me with ideas. Even actually in the trailer that we're going to show later in the show, the end of
Yeah.
it has a little guest appearance. So it's me, then Justin, and then there's someone after, which is a little guest appearance. And that was Justin's idea to put that on there.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that's cool. You got some support from the family and everything. Now, when it comes to writing comics, is this your first foray into the comic book world, or have you had some experience in comic books prior to this?
So I wrote a graphic novel about 7 years ago, and it did not. So I got it signed to a publisher, but it didn't make the shelves. We'll leave that story for another day. But
Okay.
yeah, story for another day. But so I gave me the experience and gave me the chops, gave me the confidence because we got it signed. If you can just hold on 1 second, put on that little hold music. I'm gonna shut this door back here.
No worries. I'm just enjoying the cat on the bed in the background. It's my kind of thing right there.
Oh yeah. I wrote a graphic novel a few years ago, and then we wrote this, and then it got me into screenplay writing. So I actually wrote this first as a screenplay, because if you read a comic script, it's not really that literary. You'll be like, "Hey, put the sword in the top left corner of the panel," but in a screenplay, you're like, he welds the sword, at the victim's neck or something like that. It's more like,
Yeah.
so we wrote it originally as a screenplay to see how it reads and see how it feels, and then we adapted the screenplay into graphic novel form. So yeah.
Now, to tackle a project like this, I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty big graphic novel, like over 100 pages. Is that correct?
Over 150 pages. That's right. Yeah.
Wow. So you must have had to do a search to find an artist that could tackle that kind of task. So can we talk a little bit about that process and, kind of finding who you wanted to take on the project? And I'm hoping they're also an Ernest fan too.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. That was a crazy process because, no one's handed me like a big stack of money to do this, right? Like no one's been like, here, just, whatever. So we have to find people that are good, but also that we can afford for a Kickstarter. Because if you imagine a story with over 150 pages, that's a lot of money we got to raise, right? And so, I scoured the internet. I was on this website called DeviantArt, which used to be,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it used to be the place where all comic illustrators put their pencils and their pages. And so there's hundreds of thousands of pages up there, like literally. But since then, it's gotten pretty deviant. So nobody's really DeviantArt these days.
It lived up to its name too much.
Yeah, it lived up to its name. Anyway, I scoured through thousands of pages, and I would just find the artist that I'm like, I like that style. There was a specific style I was going for this story. I wanted something that felt a little more realistic. A lot of times people think of Ernest as very cartoony and Looney Toony, but because it's more of a spooky story, I felt like something a little more detailed would fit that vibe better. And so I found this guy named Arif Rusanto from Indonesia, and he is awesome. He actually really does care about making this the best project possible. He's really proud to be involved. And, when I was looking for different illustrators and talking to people, he would start sending me different sketches of Ernest's face. And the first one would come in, the second one would be a little better, the third one would get better. And, it's not like he was being commissioned to do this. He just really wanted it. And so I was like,
Yeah.
I really wants it. I appreciate his passion, and he's really easy to work with. And so the next thing I know, it's turned into this really beautiful art. So when you see the art samples that we have, he's just blossomed, and I couldn't imagine having anybody else at this point.
Well, and as somebody who's like an amateur artist, I can tell you it's really hard to capture a likeness. Like that takes a lot of work. So the fact that you found somebody who was willing to go through that process of finding the character and finding the likeness, I'm sure he looked at a ton of reference and everything. And like you said, it continued to evolve and get better and better the more he, was able to capture the essence of Mr. Ernest. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's cool you found somebody that dug deep and was really passionate about the project.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, I mean, I was saying a second ago, like, I'm really passionate about Ernest. I'm really passionate about this project. I want more than anything for this book to reach your lap and my lap, because I want to see it. I want to read it. And it was something that I wanted to see. And I've been watching these movies my whole life. And so it was important to find someone that also would have some passion, because I don't want to throw something together that if it means something to you, you don't want to throw it together. You don't want to, call it in. You want it to be good. And so, again, I just feel fortunate that I found this guy, and yeah.
Now, you yourself, are you a comic book fan? You've been around the comic book world for a while now.
I hate comic books, man. There's nothing worse than
Man, what are you doing an Ernest Kickstarter?
Yeah, man. I've been reading comic books my whole life. And I wouldn't say like, I'm hardcore. It's not like I have crates and crates and crates, but I have a pretty big collection. Actually, there's some over here. And I usually just buy graphic novels. I don't really read issues. I haven't done that since I was younger. I like to just get the whole book and just blow through it in a night.
Yeah, that's what most of the lower part of this shelf over here to my right is all trade paperbacks, graphic novels, and everything. I'm the same way. Like, having the single individual issues. Like, I just started collecting again, which is dangerous. But as far as buying stuff weekly to read, it's just overwhelming.
Dangerous? Why? Because you'll spend money?
Dangerous because I'm running out of room.
So it's like a fire code hazard.
It's
fire code in your house.
It's you can only make so much space without building an addition onto the house.
That's awesome, man. By the way, check this out.
Too many. Oh, that's awesome. Very cool.
That's the villain for our story, by the way.
I encourage everybody to make sure you're watching the video version of the podcast, especially this one, because we're going to be showing the trailer for the Kickstarter here later. And there's always cool stuff. Like, people have cool stuff in the background. They have cool, cats bathing in the background. They got cool mugs featuring characters from their Kickstarter on it. So make sure you guys pop on over to YouTube /@Nerdy Mewzings. It's Nerdy, and then Mewzings is MEWZINGS, and you can check out the video version and see all the cool stuff. I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, let me just do a full like a full Charlie Chaplin episode where we don't speak at all and just for the listeners only.
No, you're great. You're great. I think a lot of people watch the YouTube version, but it seems like a lot of people do the audio, so they can just either while they're driving or maybe they're crafting or doing something and they just have it on in the background. But I always enjoy the audio, the video, because then you can see all the cool stuff. Like, a lot of the people I have on have these crazy collection displays behind them and stuff. It's always fun to see that I'm not the only one with way too much stuff.
Right. Well, for the listeners that are not on YouTube, it's James, right? Your name's James?
Yes, sir.
James has a pretty cool rainbow unicorn shirt. It's pretty cool.
Do you know where this is from?
Is that Reading Rainbow?
It's from a movie.
Oh no! Wait! I have seen that. Hold on.
It's from a movie featuring another guy who's 6'5" and somewhat jacked.
I've seen this. It's a movie that's not animated, and then it goes animated for a second, right?
No.
Okay, I'm wrong.
Kevin Hart was in it.
I don't know.
With a very big dude who used to be in the WWE or still is. Yeah. Yeah. You ever see Central Intelligence?
The CIA thing. Yeah, I did see that. I saw that in theater. I don't remember
So
that
The
scene.
Rock,
Yeah.
The Rock had this on in one scene of the movie. I'm like, I gotta get that.
Ah, yeah, that's good.
Hmm.
That's good.
It cracked me up because I wore it to the very first ever arm wrestling competition I competed in, and I was getting a lot of weird looks from the good old boys drinking their 6 packs of beer.
Nice.
I think they were a little concerned about me. And one guy came up, he goes, "That's an interesting shirt," and I'm like, "Yeah," I said, "it really helps to." Sort out the homophobes. And he looked at me all funny, and I was like, "Good luck today, buddy."
See ya.
I think I was in everybody's head.
I think it's
from
funny
that
when
point forward.
I think it's funny when like dudes in athletic competitions are confident enough to do like, it's funny when like there's a UFC fighter named Tai Tuivasa that came out to the Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I love when stuff like that happens. Like, it's just having a great time and, not trying to be too cool.
Absolutely. So, how do you know Justin Mason? Because that's how we got connected. My buddy Justin Mason, the amazing artist on so many different things. He's the one that connected us. So, how long ago did you meet Justin?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, we launched the Ernest Goes to Comics page, and then he reached out to me basically, and he said, "Man, I'm a big fan of Ernest, and I just wanted to see what's going on." And I was like, "Great," and so I'm really happy that we met. And it turns out, I guess he's from Kentucky and I'm from Tennessee.
Yeah.
So we're from close areas, right? It's not that far, a couple hour drive. And so we've just messaged on Facebook, but I've not actually met him yet. So it's cool that I made.
Yeah, I've only interacted with him online for many years, but yeah, same thing. Never. I'm hoping they bring him out to a convention here close to us, because there's a couple of big cons out here every year, and I'm like, man, you got to get him to bring you out. And get to meet in person. Yeah, he's a good dude. He's a really good dude. I remember connecting with him like before he ever broke in, and when he was a struggling up and coming artist, and now to see him working for Marvel and doing Spider-Punk and all this cool stuff. It's just really neat to see a good person like that succeed and be making it and going after their dreams. So kind of sounds similar to what you're doing with this comic as well, chasing your passion and putting it out there for everybody. Have you found the response to be pretty much like, man, I love Ernest, or man, I never thought about Ernest being in a comic? That's very unique. Like, I hadn't thought of that. It seems like it's kind of made for comics, but I'm honestly surprised nobody's done it yet.
Yeah, that actually surprised me too when I thought of the idea. In fact, I was a little distracted earlier, but when I was talking about how I wrote a comic book like 6 or 7 years and got it signed, my evil plan was always to use that me being a published comic book author now as a way to be like, hey, I'm a public comic author. You want to do an Ernest comic, and everything nice. Shelves. And so I was like, well, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it turned out it happened anyways. I don't even remember what'd you ask me again? Oh, about the Ernest.
I was saying, well, yeah, like the response to it, like, have you found that everybody's pretty excited? Everybody you've told about it?
Yeah. Most people are really excited, and that's given me a lot of energy, because I put a lot of work into this thing, man. I put a lot of work into, I guess, ignorance is bliss at this point, because, I had to learn about all kinds of stuff, building a video, building social media, learning about print, building an artistic team, not writing a script. I mean, it was a lot to go through. And so seeing the fans' responses gives me energy, when I'm running the Facebook page and, I feel tired or whatever, and I look down at someone's like, man, Ernest was a big part of my childhood. I'm so excited for this. It really makes me feel excited, because I'm like, man, these people feel the same way I do. And it's also given me an awareness that, this logically, but it's given me more of like an emotional, experiential knowledge of this really touches the inner child of a lot of people. And it's important to a lot of people. And And so I want people to know, that it's important to me, and that, we're leaving no stone unturned to try to make this as authentic as possible. Because it's important to me to make sure that it's a good product, or at least as good as we can make it, So yeah, the fan reaction's been incredible, really.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, I would be disappointed if it wasn't. I'm like, dude, everybody needs to appreciate this. And I was so excited to hear about it and to have you on. Wanted to ask, like, now over 150 pages, that's quite the undertaking. So I'm assuming that you obviously completed writing it, and you said you kind of took it from being a screenplay to more formatted for a comic. And the artist, how long ago did you connect with that person and get them started, like actually producing the comic? Have they been working on it for a while, cranking their way through the pages?
This is a good question. So the book is not finished, right? So this Kickstarter is, we will have 5 pages of proof of concept. We'll have covers, but the Kickstarter, a lot of Kickstarters out there are like, hey, we have the book finished, pre-order it, we'll give it to you, we'll get it to you in a month. This is to create the book, right? So it's going to take us about a year to do, and this is why I'm saying we need people's help, because no one gave us a big stack of money to do this. So, without the fans helping us, it's not possible. So it's really in all of our hands. And listen, being a salesman is against every fiber of my body. I promise you, I do not, I'm very uncomfortable doing it, but it means a lot to me, and I want this book in my lap. So, it launches on September 17th, and the Kickstarter algorithm, like if more people purchase it on day one, it pushes you up the algorithm, but if they don't, it pushes you down. So we're going to offer
interesting
early bird discounts. So yeah, if you get on our mailing list and stuff, we'll give free downloadable content. We'll come up with some early bird discounts. And I'll probably try to make the emails kind of a fun experience. I'll tell some history of Ernest, and I'll link some YouTube videos to some old stuff that, Ernest did or Jim Varney did. But yeah, I totally forgot what your question is. I'm just totally rambling, but go ahead.
No, you nailed it. Just as far as how far along it was and everything. And in my experience, like with Kickstarters that I've backed, like it's pretty much the norm that they aren't completed. Like it's pretty rare. Like maybe people who have done numerous Kickstarters, they're the ones that like, hey, it's ready to go. We just need the funding to get it printed. Like most of the time, it's the same situation that you're talking about, to where it's still very much in the early stages of production. And once it gets that back, and then some of the funds start rolling in, then it can really, that snowball can get rolling downhill. So yeah, totally normal. Are you planning on having any artists come in and do like variant covers or do pinups or anything like that? Or is it strictly going to be the one artist working on the whole project?
Great question. So we're going to have 2 covers. We're going to have the standard edition cover, which is done by our main artist who does the interior pages. His name's Arif Rusanto. And he's awesome. And he's the guy I was telling you about earlier that's, taking all the care to try to make Ernest actually look and feel like Ernest. So he'll be the standard edition. We're also going to do a director's cut. And the director's cut will be a variant cover. You'll see it in the trailer. It's the cover that I show really early. It's black and white because that feels more like director's cut-ish. And that was done by a guy named Erwin Arosa. And the director's cut's going to be a really cool item. We're going to have storyboards from, I don't think I'm at liberty to say which film just yet. One of the films, we're going to have storyboards, because the creator and the creator of the Ernest character and the Ernest franchise, he was also the director of the films. He was a great artist too, so he would draw storyboards for the Ernest scenes.
Very cool.
Yeah, and so we're going to put those in the director's cut, and then we're also going to have like historical kind of archival stuff. So there's we've kind of looked around on the internet, and there's newspaper clippings throughout the 80s where people would put Ernest in the newspaper, and when they draw him and it's like a cartoon comic Ernest instead of like a scanned version, we're going to put a few of those in there. Not a lot, but enough so you can look over some history and see how different people have drawn Ernest. I will write a little letter to the fans and just, reflect on the experience and, give it a personal touch. And then we'll put in some excerpts from the comic book script and then we'll put in some excerpts from the screenplay. And then we're going to put in some like fan service. So some of the Kickstarter rewards could be like, if you pay for a certain tier, maybe you could get your kid or you would depend, whoever, doesn't matter, whoever you are. Like you could have Ernest write like a little fan mail message to your kid, or you, and put your picture there. And so like that kind of stuff will also go in the director's cut. So 2 editions, same story, but the director's cut has more collector's item stuff. Both are hardcover. So if you're a collector, but you just want the story, you can get the standard edition, put it on your shelves. And of course, there'll be tiers where you can get both books. And we're hoping to have slip cases. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen, but not 100% official yet.
Depends on that support level, huh?
Yeah, right.
People don't realize that printing costs money, man. It ain't cheap. Like It's more of accessible nowadays, and there's more things you can do, but definitely ups the cost on what you're doing, depending on how fancy you want to get with it.
Yeah, it does. That's something that like I originally thought it'd be cool to have soft covers and hard covers, but I don't know what's going to happen. And that is expensive to like, the price per book as you print goes down. So, but given our target audience is probably like people 35 to 50, it's better to go collector's item, go hardcover. And so, we're going full in on hardcovers, and fingers crossed it works out.
Awesome, man. I think we should pull this trailer up and take a look. So everybody get ready to hop on over to YouTube and check this part of the podcast out. All right, everybody, get ready. If you're not on YouTube, jump over. We're going to hit this trailer for Ernest and the Dreamstone.
Just when you thought reading a book could make you smarter.
Are there any more pictures?
Oh, brother. Ernest is back in his very first graphic novel, and I can't think of a better holiday season than Halloween.
Vern, New Year's, Groundhog's Day, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Memorial Day, Father's Day, the 4th of July, Labor Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
Okay, so it's good for any holiday season, okay?
And if you guys in the neighborhood will help me, I'll be in this book.
Hey guys, my name is Corey. I am the author of Ernest and the Dreamstone, and we are so excited to announce that for the first time in over 25 years, Ernest P. Worrell is back for his first adventure in comic book form. Guys, we worked on the script for probably over a year and a half, really fine-tuning it, trying to make sure it's as on-brand and earnesty as possible so that when you open the book, you're really transported back to the original world of Ernest. So with your support, we're going to create a full graphic novel, over 150 pages, fully colored. I think you guys are going to love it. We have a fantastic story, and a friend of mine has something to say.
Hey folks, I'm Justin Lloyd, Jim Varney's nephew and author of his biography. I know Jim would be super excited about this graphic novel, all 150 pages of it. He loved collecting comic books as a kid. I hope you'll support it. Thank you very much.
Who was that fella, Vern? Snappy dresser, though. Know what I mean?
That was amazing, dude.
That's what I was talking about, the little guest appearance at the end. Yeah, Ernest comes in, and that was Justin's idea. So you were asking me about getting to know Justin Lloyd, and I'm glad I did, because he was like, man, you need something to button that video. Like, it feels like a little hollow. And so, he actually found that clip, and he was like, why don't you use this? And I was like, great. And so we put it in there. And then, he was like, Ernest saves the Kickstarter video. And I was like, yep, that's exactly right.
Now, did you do the narration on that?
Yeah, I did my best movie guy, in a world.
Dude, it was great. It was great.
Okay.
I thought it was you, but I'm like, oh, you got this down. You must have practiced a little bit.
I tell you what I did actually is when I recorded myself, I pitched my voice down just a little bit so it sounds like me, but it's just a little lower than me, and so that helps. So that was my little cheat code.
That artwork was amazing. You weren't joking when you said like he got it dialed in. He really captured the essence of the character, which is as an artist is something very incredibly hard to do. And I like the fact that it is more realistic. Like, it's not totally cartoony and everything. So that's really neat to see. That's something I think is going to really appeal to a lot of people, because I think if you went a little too cartoony, it might turn some people off. And, given that, I'll be 47 this year, and most of the people you said are like in that 30 to 50 age range who love Ernest. So
good point. No, yeah, that was kind of, I didn't think of it like that. There was another guy that was a little more cartoony that was great, and we still might, if we do some stuff in the future, I better not give too much stuff away. But if we do to success and we do stuff in the future, we could work with this other guy more too. But I really love Arif's work. And it was important to me to, like I said earlier, to really capture the real feeling of Ernest, and that's a big undertaking if you really love the product. And so I actually created like a compendium of folders, like 20 folders, and each folder is listed by an emotion that Ernest has. This is how talented Jim Varney is. Like this is when I started getting like blown away about how talented Jim Varney is, because Ernest has all these emotions, right? And so, and in each folder, I have like 50 stills from movies, like from, just screenshots. And so I gave all those to Arif. And so in my comic book script, when certain things happen, I'd use different stills, because like, I know I could just sense, okay, this is the face that he would make. This is the vibe we're going to go for. And so that was really important to me, that throughout the whole book, it would feel really earnesty. So I spent forever compiling that and going through that, but I think it's going to pay off in the end, because it's going to make the product better, and also just to go back to what I was saying about Jim Varney, like when Jim Varney wears Ernest clothes and acts like Ernest, he does a certain thing. When Jim Varney wears Ernest clothes and acts like Felix Nash from Ernest Goes to Jail, you can tell, even when he has the hat on, you can tell who's who. That's the same actor with the same clothes on, doing two different people, and the viewer is clear. I mean, like, Jim Varney's so underrated. So when I started going through this, and I'm like, this is not just, Jim Varney's emotions. These are Ernest emotions. And that kind of blew me away. So, yeah.
I think you coined a new official term with earnesty. It feels earnesty. And I would agree that trailer, everything feels very earnesty. So I love it. Do you think, now you mentioned how it kind of started as a screenplay and everything. Do you think there's any chance, if this is successful, it might get some attention and people might realize this is a viable avenue to maybe pursue some things as far as film? Or I know, Jim's gone and everything, but gosh, I see so many of those memes with John Cena slowly turning into Ernest. What do you think about that? You think just leave it alone and just stick with comics, or do you think it may end up going in a different route if this is super popular? I
got to tell you, man, you got skills as a podcast host, because you're putting good questions on me right now. This is like, I'm squirming in a good way a little bit. I would say that, it was written as a screenplay. And to answer your question earlier, it is 150 pages because of the adaptation. So, a screenplay needs to be like 90 to 110 pages at most. Comedies generally go 90 pages. But this is Ernest in comic book form. And so there's a little more to do in this story than just your typical run around and be a comedy. Like, he's got a character arc. He's got to overcome some things. And there's going to be a challenge. And Dr. Otto, if you don't know, again, just bring him up. Dr. Otto, this guy right here, is the villain. And that's a character that Jim Varney played before he did Ernest. You guys can Google that and watch those old movies. So converting the script took 150 pages. And so is that a viable thing for future media? Well, I certainly feel it's written to be cinematic. Now, do people want to see Ernest without Jim Varney? I mean, but there's other ways to make films besides with humans. There's animation and stuff. So I'll just leave it at that. But if it's a success and people are talking about it, I'll be happy regardless of whatever if people are like, I love it, but no, don't do anything else with it. Great. People are talking about it. So
as we start to wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, is there anything you can share as far as the plot of this story, this adventure that we're going to go on with Ernest in Ernest Goes to Comics, Ernest and the Dreamstone? Is that the correct name? So I'm assuming the Dreamstone is an integral part of this plot. Can you share a little bit without giving too much away?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you the elevator pitch to kind of set the stage of the story. Like I said earlier, it's kind of my love letter to Ernest Scared Stupid, but it's got some pathos to it, like Ernest Goes to Camp. So we'll say a tragedy occurs in a small town, and this small town was on the brink of collapse, and this tragedy that's everyone's gonna have to leave, right? And it matters to Ernest, and so he's really upset, and he finds a magical stone, and he bumbles into it, in Ernest style. It's not like,
typical Ernest fashion.
Typical Ernest fashion. He's gonna like bumble into a magical stone, and he's gonna figure out that it brings his dreams into reality. So he concocts the genius idea, as only Ernest could, that if he could dream of the solution to the problem, he could save the town. And however, before he goes to bed and does his dream, he's reading a comic book with the evil Dr. Otto. And instead of dreaming of the solution, he dreams of the worst nightmarish problem. And then chaos ensues. We'll put it that way.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, we need to make sure that we give out all the pertinent information as far as where people can follow you. I'm assuming they can pop on the Kickstarter and get on the mailing list to be notified when it kicks off on September 17th and everything. So why don't you go ahead and let everybody know the best places to follow you online to keep track of this, and that way as soon as it comes out they can be notified and get on there and support it right away.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for asking me that. Again, the sales pitch stuff is not my forte, but I'll do it, man, because I have to. So again, guys, we really need your help, and the more people, if you're interested and you want to make a purchase on Kickstarter, the more people who can do that around September 17th, the better, just for the algorithm. And because maybe we'll blow it out of the water, and maybe all this anxiety is just anxiety, but I don't know. So I have to do everything I can, leave no stone unturned. So yeah, anybody who can do anything around September 17th. So you can, right now, you can go to www.ernestgoestocomics.com. That'll take you to our landing page. You can sign up with your email. You can also see the trailer there as well. There's a YouTube link to the trailer. So if you want to get access to that and share it around or look at it again, and we'll give you some free downloadable content. I haven't sent out any emails yet to the backers or the members, but I will probably pretty soon. And then we'll have updates, maybe some early bird discounts. And then we have a Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Ernest Goes to Comics. And that's where everything is, because Instagram page is doing okay. It's doing okay. And the Twitter page, I mean, you guys don't even want to look at that. If you're on Twitter and you know what you're doing, help us out, because I don't know what I'm doing on Twitter, but we got those three places, but Facebook seems to be where it's popping off the best. And you can follow us. I'll make updates. I'm also recording a podcast to be a reward in the Kickstarter. So you'll be able to buy tiers if you want to book and the podcast. And the podcast is going to have exclusive behind the scenes interviews with like Josh Cherry, the creator of the franchise, with Justin Lloyd, Jim Varney's nephew and author of his biography, Jim Varney's niece. These are great people. And some other people interview with myself and the artist. And we go through and watch the movies just to get the podcast started. So if anybody hasn't, they can listen to us, BS about the movies. So there's going to be a lot of good content on there. So be ready. The Kickstarter page hasn't launched yet as of August 9th. But it probably will within the next week or so.
Very cool. So, and they can also find it on Instagram. Like you said, it hasn't popped off like Facebook, but it's also Ernest Goes to Comics on Instagram as well. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. On Twitter, it's Comic Book Ernest because somebody else already had Ernest Goes to Comics.
What the heck?
Yeah, what the heck?
It's probably Justin. You shouldn't have told Justin about it. Get on out of here, Justin.
Come on, man. Come on, Justin.
Awesome, Corey. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here today. Like I said, huge Ernest fan and was very honored when Justin reached out and connected us and to have the opportunity to have you on and get the word out about this. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks, man. I do have one more question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
How did you learn about Ernest? What were your Ernest experiences like? How did you come to love Ernest?
Ernest Goes to Camp, Ernest Scared Stupid, all of those. Like, I remember watching those movies with my parents growing up. My parents were huge Jim Varney fans as well, so we watched all of that stuff. So I'll admit that it's been a long time since I've seen them, but now doing this with you and hearing about this project has made me want to go back and rekindle my Ernest, get my Ernest fix and remember stuff from childhood that has kind of left my brain a little bit. I have little snapshots here and there from the movies, but it's been so long since I watched them. So just always a huge Jim Varney fan. And it always impressed me, like you said. Like, I think when I was a little kid, I didn't realize that it wasn't a different actor playing the evil version or whatever, when he would be a different character. Wow. Because he was so good at portraying that, and he just completely changed despite wearing the same clothing and everything. So I really remember that standing out to me as a little younger person and going, man, this guy's a good actor.
Yeah, for sure. And,
I definitely underrated, like you were saying. I really think he was underrated.
For sure. And Jim Varney really wanted a dramatic role, and it mattered a lot to him. And it was kind of ironic that the character that brought him to stardom was, not exactly what he wanted personally. And so there was probably a little bit of a tension there for him, even though he was also really grateful. You can read Justin Lloyd's biography of Jim Varney. It's awesome. And he talks about how Jim Varney is grateful for it, but also he wanted that dramatic role. All that to say, when he got to Goes to Jail, I think that probably was something that was really cool for him. So, one of the yin and the yangs of Ernest, a lot of people don't think about this, but John Cherry, the director, told me this actually. Rest in peace to John Cherry, the late great guy. He said that there's a contrast with Ernest, and you have to have the silly, bumbling character. If it's going to work the best, you need the contrast of almost like dramatic actors around him. You think about Ernest Goes to Camp. The villain in that is like, you could have had that same guy in Die Hard. Like, he's kind of a low down, dirty guy. It's not funny, but Ernest is funny. And so if you fast forward to Ernest Goes to Jail, you have an opportunity for Jim Varney to finally actually provide that dramatic contrast while playing the bumbling protagonist. So that must have been really cool for him.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you brought back a lot of memories today, and again, I appreciate you being on. I want everybody to go out and support the Kickstarter and make sure it cracks off on day one with a huge success. And everybody, go give them a follow, like, subscribe, all the good things. Same with this podcast. If you wouldn't mind going over to our YouTube, subscribing, any audio podcast platform. But if you go on to the Apple Podcasts and give us a review, it always helps get that exposure. Corey, hang out with me for a moment. I'm going to hit my outro. You have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, guys.
And everybody listening, keep it nerdy.
Keep it nerdy.